The first time I seen snow, I was in Detroit, Michigan. You never seen snow before? I said, "Oh, that's what it is, snow." I was probably 23 years old.
That's a perfect story. Evgenia, thank you very much for your question, and Jamie, the same to you. Artie, welcome.
Okay, maybe I have a little bit stereotypical question about southern states and southern people. I know there is some stereotype in America, like southern people sounds not so smart, you know, and just because of way of speaking. What's the deal in your state and your area where you live with that? How, in your opinion, how people, your neighbors, what they think about people from north? Like they really smarter, or they just, or the way how they speak really smart, or is it really offensive when they call the name like rednecks or hillbillies, something like that? What do you think?
Well, it's kind of a complicated situation because in the north, northern colonial part of the United States, or prior to the U.S., was predominantly English.
Yeah, I know.
Okay. So the southern states were mostly Irish and French and in Spanish. So the accents that you have are non-native English, which you would consider Anglo-Saxon English. The Irish English today you can barely understand. And the French hated the British. Actually, did you know an Englishman could not do business in a French colony in Louisiana?
Oh, that's interesting.
No, we didn't know that.
Exactly. So what you have is the English, talking down to the Irish and the French, and portions of Florida and some of the Louisiana and Texas was Spanish. So there was always a conflict. So of course, if you own the newspapers and you own the different media outlets and books, you can form an opinion against somebody, and it become if you repeat something enough, even if it ain't true, or even if it's not true, people tend to believe it. So that's how you get that stereotype in that with the ignorance of the South. But something the South has that the North doesn't have is a more diverse population. So we have more blacks, we have more whites, not more whites, but we have more blacks, we have more Hispanics in the South. The North doesn't have that. The North is in some areas 98% white.
Yeah, actually that's interesting. I know that a long time ago in America there was civil war between North and South, and one of the reasons was slavery. And I know southern states was like pro slavery, and in the southern there is opinion in the southern people more racist. They don't like black people.
I don't think that's the case. The situation you had in the South, and I know what the history books are going to tell you, but I know what the cold hard truth is. Slavery, I can't justify and say it's a good thing, because if you're taking somebody from a foreign land and bringing them here. But what you have to remember, the world then isn't the world now. And what I mean by that is there were no stores. The the infrastructure here, there were no streets, there were no street lights, there was no electricity, there was no running water. It was a wilderness. They needed, you know, and it happened before the United States. Like I said, this was a French colony from Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana. That was a French colony. So the French came here, and they needed people to settle the area, whether it's white, black, whatever. So my family, when they settled, they were what was called indentured servants. So what they had to do was serve, say, 7 years in North Carolina or Georgia working, and after 7 years they were released, and they traveled west and settled in the northern part of Louisiana. Now, that's on my mother's side. On my father's side, they came to New Orleans in 1720, and they settled. Now, I looked at some census records. You know, the French were really good about keeping records about population and who was where. And there was hardly any blacks or African slaves at that time. It was majority of the people that settled in the French colony were of German descent. They lived in this borderland between France and Germany called Alsace-Lorraine. And they were tricked into coming here because they're like, oh yeah, there's gold everywhere. You can just walk around and pick it up, you know. So they had thousands of people that traveled here on the prospect of becoming wealthy. It's just one of those things. It's a sad situation because you know you don't want to see another human being suffer. But was it as diabolical as what the media now makes it out to be? I don't think so, because you had to depend on each other to survive. Now, the later part, when the population of blacks, Africans coming into the U.S., when it soared, which was probably the 1850 up until the Civil War. When the population of the blacks like really increased, then you see situations where you're going to have animosity because it's no different than a man that's in Russia. He wants a job, right? The Russian man wants a good job. But what happens when they bring in somebody from Uzbekistan to work for pennies on a day? You know, and the Russian man can't make a decent living because they using basically slave labor. So that's where the animosity, I think, comes from. Because not everybody owned slaves in the South. Only a few families owned slaves, but they had these large tracts of land. It's a situation like that.
So, personally, you don't think the black people more lazy than white?
I didn't say that.
Yeah, but that's why I asked.
I can tell you for a fact, and look, I don't need a book to tell me what I've seen with my own eyes in the 39 years I've been on this earth. And it's not the black man's fault completely, but he is to blame for some of it. But if the government is going to keep giving you things, you're going to do less to take care of yourself. You're not going to shoulder as much responsibility. If you can get a $600 to $800 a month and a free house, you're going to take it, right?
Yeah.
So the government in the U.S., that's what the government has done, is they've created dependence, and a lot of these black families are dependent upon the government assistance. There's different programs. I mean, white people use it too, but it's supposed to be used as a crutch to help you to get somewhere, not to become a staple of your life. So, there's some issues with that, because you see a guy, he goes to work every day. He's struggling. He's paying his bills, but his tax money's paying for somebody else to live in a house that doesn't work, that sits on the porch all day drinking tea, you know, standing on the street corner. I mean, that's where a lot of some animosity is gonna develop for sure.
Yeah, but if we're talking about welfare, I think it's a good thing because it's decrease street crime. So that's
no, it doesn't. It doesn't. See, that's the big myth. That's the myth. See, what it does is it creates a group of people that abuse the system. There was an article a few years back about welfare babies. These women would have children, and by filling out certain pieces of paperwork or doing certain things or enrolling their children in certain daycare, they generated over $40,000 a year in income just for having babies. It's a big issue in New Orleans, especially. The crime is there because what you're doing is giving them money so they have all day. You know, with the old saying, the devil, idle hands are the devil's workshop. You know, when you got a grown man that's say 35 years old and he's never worked a day in his life, there's something wrong with that. Wouldn't you agree, Artie?
Yeah, I agree. If there's really not sick people and don't want to work, it's maybe not good stuff. But sometimes
now multiply that by 250,000. And that's what you got in, your average U.S. city. You got 250,000 35-year-old black men that have never worked a day in their life.
What's the reason? Why black people don't want to work? Maybe welfare. It's a little bit. Maybe it's too much money, or maybe we need your government have to pay a little bit less.
Well, that's the issue, and if you look at, I mean, that's why there's so much turmoil between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. The Democrats say we're not giving these people enough money. We need to give them more money, and the Republicans are saying no. We need to cut back on this money, and we need to put people to work. So what you have, and this last election proved it with the re-election of Barack Obama, is people want more free stuff. And
want more free stuff.
But it's not free. Somebody has to pay for it, and the person that works, that's paying